My name is Andrea Schermoly and I've been a dancer with Nederlands Dance Theatre for 6 years. NDT tours really extensively, but I think my more enjoyable tours were with NDT2, I just say because it's a smaller group and everyone's completely mad. So, of course, cooping up 16 people in a hotel is really the worst thing you could ever imagine doing, so it's fun. People are nutty and yeah, we wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go play games out in the garden, outside, you know, like running around, getting injured games. The most pressured, but actually the most rewarding experience I had was dancing, excuse me, at the Paris Opera. And, oh my god, yeah, I didn't sleep for like 5 days before that. It was awful. I was very, very nervous. I literally did not sleep. Like, I was an insomniac, and even the night before it was terrible because I was having nightmares because the stage is raked. And so I kept having these like daydream nightmares about falling over, and eventually the night before the show, I couldn't sleep and I was in the hotel room and I went down to the concierge and he gave me some whiskey. He's like, "You need to sleep, you have a show tomorrow." And so I took it, I was like, okay, all right. And I went back and it was good, I slept for like 5 hours. But the performance was amazing, it went really well, and your adrenaline and your muscle memory takes over immediately. It was really rewarding, and actually for Paris the crowd was great too. So receptive. It was surprising. Touring in NDT is really interesting because I think that NDT1 especially has such a long tradition of being a certain type of company, and also we're undergoing a transition right now, and the type of repertoire we take abroad is quite different. People really demand Killian, and they demand certain things that we're not always bringing. Most of the time we are, but it's a trial and error phase a bit now, I think. And there's just also some certain journalists that just have it out. No matter what we do, if it's great or not, it's going to be a terrible review. You know, in England we have a history of that. Every time we tour to England, it's just, they slash us. But in certain other places, it's fantastic. We're always received really well, and it's like the highlight of the dance tour, you know. I'm not sure why. They have a lot, I mean, especially in England, I think the style is so different. Just the taste is different. And we don't go to the States very often. We go to England all the time. And NDT2, I think, generally, because it's a junior company, is often less criticized. Because for their energy and the fact that they're up and coming and they go easier on them, and also they're fun. They do a lot more fun, vibrant pieces. Whereas NDT1, it's really scrutinized when we come to see what's going on. Are we doing anything new? Are we touring with just the same old rep over and over? But to America, I think if we went more often, it might be better. I mean, there's only 2 other companies in the States that really do similar repertoire, and it's not enough to infect a whole country to show what's going on, you know? So I think there's a lot of companies that are trying to be similar, but consistently along the same path, I would say, is Hubbard Street and Cedar Lake. Yeah. It's strange, it's such a double-edged sword, because I think because there's a lot more comfort in European companies. It's one of the few places where you get lifetime contracts, you're never fired, there's an opportunity never to be fired if you stay long enough. Just the atmosphere it's a little bit less competitive, which I think in some ways can be detrimental because people don't work that hard then. There's a little bit of complacency. A little bit. It's not everywhere. It also depends on individuals if they're driven or not. So in the States you find it's quite a bit more neck and neck, and people are pushing and they really care about casting, and the gossip is just a bit more heightened, and that's a bit strange. And that part of it's not nice, but it also can like breed it can breed some really good things out of dance, you know. But I don't know. I think the quality of contemporary dance, which is the genre that I function in, is better in Europe. And I can't say exactly why. I think that's just audiences in America, for me personally, don't have enough exposure to it, so there's just not enough pushing the button, you know. It's very conservative, I think. But it's changing. Working with Killian for the first time was terrifying. It was awful. It wasn't awful, I lie. For me, it was just a really I don't know, it's strange to think because we're always around with him here and it's good, but everyone reveres him, so you feel like a bit working like with a god. But it was really, really interesting because he actually wanted more from the dancers than I thought he did. Not necessarily than I thought he did in general, but from us particularly, he allowed a lot. So it was a good time to to grow, and yeah, it was very scary. The very first time for sure, yeah. I think one really interesting thing that I realized about Killian is that he, unlike a lot of choreographers, he doesn't stick with something that doesn't work. Not for very long at all, actually. You'll try it out a couple times and it'll just, he's not going to hack at it until you make something of it. It's like, no, that just doesn't work. And then you go from a clean slate all over again. Which means also day to day, sometimes there's things that entire chunks of material are lost entirely, and you start from a new point or perspective again, which is really interesting because I think that's why he's able to create so much and why his creations are still just, everlasting, because he has so much that he's always constantly discovering, and he loses entire bits of it which resurface later on in something else that works. But at that time, he won't make you do something that's not going to happen. So it's cool. You feel comfortable quite soon with the material that you're given. You're not often given something you feel like, I'll never get this. But it's more then with that, what do you do with that? Then he wants quality. With the most simplest step, that's where it starts to grow within the step, and that's what makes it special, I think. It's never about what step you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And he's very particular about that. He can be very harsh when he wants to be. Especially with music. Musicality is like the most. Okay, aesthetics. Chapter 1, aesthetics of NDT. NDT definitely does have an aesthetic that's very particular for it, and I think people notice it when they watch performances. I'd say the quality of movement rather than the types of dancers they choose. I think the work a lot though tends to form what the dancers look like. Not in a way that you arrive here looking a certain way and change extremely, but like the muscle structure and even the sensitivity of movement changes throughout at least a 3-year period of being in the company. And that I think we definitely pick that up from other dancers. It's not something that's taught. Even from the directors, it's really not something that's taught, but it's encouraged in a way that somebody else is shown as an example, and you're not told exactly to move like that, but there's something about it that you start to suss out, oh, I really don't move like this. Oh, this needs to have some more rounded edges. I don't need to do everything punched all the time. So I think the quality of movement is a lot more elastic and liquid-like. Really, there's been a few choreographers that come in that don't want that. And it's really hard to untrain. I think that's also, NDT does so much repertoire, and we're on tour a lot with a lot of different pieces constantly, that it's a feat really to change yourself so drastically for every single choreographer, I think. I mean, physically to be one certain way from a half-hour piece to the next piece, you always end up looking a bit like you. You try to absorb and take on something and really become what the choreographer wants. But in all essence, we do so many different things that if we don't have a really long period of time working with the choreographer, it's hard to change your aesthetics. So I think there's been a few, in terms of heaviness, I think Ohad Naharin from Israel, his work it takes a lot of getting used to. Just the simplicity of it and not looking pretty, because it's not about looking pretty. And a lot of NDT, I think, has that sort of serene glass, looking through a glass quality about it. And when you really have to just be there and kind of ugly and at it just changes your mindset a bit. And that takes work. It's really strange. It's strange to not make everything look perfect and untouchable.